All right, welcome back to my basement. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be factoring trinomials. And this is going to be the most common factoring skill we're going to use. And it's going to be used with trinomials. Now, unsurprisingly, trinomials mean we're going to have three terms. So with your trinomials, you have to be aware, if you remember when we factored by grouping, there was 4 terms. Our GCF, that could be any number of terms, 2, 3, 4, a million, whatever. But with trinomials, that's specifically going to be 3 terms. And they're going to usually be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. And you may be remembering that form because we used it back when we graphed. Okay, when we graphed our quadratic functions, those were gave you the parabola, the U-shaped thing. And now we're going to use that form to factor. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to write out the steps on this left piece of paper as I do an example on the right piece of paper. All right, so the first thing we need to realize is we need to realize what A, B, and C are. Well, that's pretty obvious. Oh my God. There's not a number in front of our x squared. So obviously we know that means it's going to be 1. A is always the number with the x squared. B is always the number with the x. And C is always the number by itself. So my first step is I'm going to multiply A and C. So that's just 1 times 12. And I like to put that in a little circle there. All right, so we have our product. Remember, product is multiplication. And that's going to be 12. All right? Step 2. Now we're going to use the skill that we did last time, and where you had to multiply 2 numbers to get something and then add to get something else. And now we're going to find 2 numbers that multiply to get AC. That's our product right there. And the add to get B. So we're trying to think of the 2 numbers that multiply to get 12 and add to get 8. Okay? Now, hopefully with your skills from last time, you will realize that these 2 numbers are 6 and 2. So step 3, we're going to break the middle term, which is B, up into those 2 numbers. All right? So we're going to be breaking our middle term, which is the 8x, and we're going to break that up into 2 parts. Instead of an 8x, it's going to be a 6x plus a 2x. So we're going to be including the variable. So rewriting and it's going to just be the exact same as it started as my original equation. But now instead of writing 8x, we're going to break it up into plus 6x plus 2x plus 12. All right? So now this, what I have down here, and this up at the top are equivalent. They're the same thing. I just changed the form. Step 4, now we're just going to use a skill we already have. And we're going to factor by grouping. And we know how to factor by grouping already. We group the first two, group the last two. We're going to take a greatest common factor out of that. So x squared and 6x, my greatest common factor is x. And what I'm left with is x plus 6. All right, and if you still struggle with that, I would go back and do some practice. You can shoot myself, Ms. Flesker, Ms. Grunza, an email. We can give you some extra practice if that's something you're still struggling on. Here, my GCF is 2. And I'm left with x plus 6. All right, then remember, a couple of you have been leaving out this last step and stopping here. We got to put the outsides together. That's x and plus 2. And that's my first parenthesis. My second parenthesis is what the inside is. So first parenthesis, the outsides, x plus 2. Second parenthesis, the inside. You're only writing it once. And then we circle. Fifth step is make sure you're loving life. All right? I know it's pretty difficult in these crazy times, but, you know, smile. Whenever I'm struggling, I do a couple nice factoring problems, and I immediately feel better. Hopefully it's the same with you. All right, let's try a few more. I'll keep the steps up there. And let's try number, we'll call this example house. So 3x squared plus 13x minus 10. All right, so we have a wonderful equation here. First step, multiply A and C. If you want to write out what A, B, and C are first, that's sometimes nice. A is 3, B is 13, C is negative 10. We're going to multiply A times C, which gives me negative 30. All right, hopefully you understood the last lesson when we were dealing with the negatives. Now we need to find two numbers that multiply to get that negative 30. And some of you gave me some good feedback that I was blocking some of the paper. I'll try to do my best to stop that. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to get negative 30 and add to get positive 13. Now this one's weird because it feels like it should be 10 and 3, but two numbers, right, to multiply to get a negative, we can't have two positives here. So it's actually going to be 15 and negative 2. So what we're going to do, our step 3, we're going to break that 13x into 15x and negative 2x. And then I'm just going to rewrite that original problem, 3x squared. And instead of plus 13x, I'm going to put it as plus 15x minus 2x. And it does not matter which order you have these two in. if you got -2 and 15, you're going to end up with the same answer, something that's magical. And -10. Remember, we're dealing with the original problem, not this 30. So make sure you're writing when you have it in here that you use the original and not the multiplied version. Then we break it up into our two parts. GCF here is 3x. We're left with x plus 5. GCF here, these are both negative. So my GCF is going to be a -2. And I'm left with x plus 5. Be careful with your signs. Remember, these two have to be the same. If you're getting the wrong sign, if you're getting the same thing but opposite signs, you probably just factored out a positive here. Notice the reason this turned into a plus, because if I distribute, that'd be -2x, and a negative times a positive is that -10. Last step, put it all together. The outsides is a 3x, and a -2 is my first parentheses. A few of you are putting plus or minus signs in here. Don't do that. This is multiplication. The second parenthesis is just what's inside. And then I circle it. Love life. Isn't it wonderful? We'll do one more. We'll call this example awesome. All right, let's try 2x squared minus 7x minus 4. All right, my a is 2, my b is -7, my c is -4. Multiply a times c, which gives me -8. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to get -8 and add to get -7. And that is just -8 and +1. Again, you're multiplying to get a negative. The only way to multiply to get a negative is one negative and one positive. And then these would add to get -7. Excuse me, now we're going to rewrite this. We're going to break up that middle term into these, but with the variable. So that's -8x plus 1x minus 4. And now we just factor by grouping. My GCF here is 2x. I'm left with x minus 4. This one doesn't have a GCF, right? So in that case, our greatest common factor is just 1, and then I'm left with x minus 4. Put the outsides together, 2x plus 1. My inside is x minus 4. Circle it, and love life. All right, if you're having any issues, just let your teacher know. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, and this will be due whatever your first class period next week is. Don't be afraid to reach out if you're struggling. This is a skill that comes back a lot throughout your next couple years. So if you're just copying off someone, if you're just photomathing, then that's not going to help you. You got nothing else to do. Just do your work. All right? Have a wonderful weekend, and peace out. If you want to get some juggling tips, just let me know.